Hello, everybody. Welcome. We are going to have a fantastic Zoom conference right now. And we have some of the executives from Gogoro, and we also have Homer Sun from joining us from the West Coast, from Poema, and the sponsor of the Spac. And what we're going to get into is we're going to start by speaking with Horace Luke about the vision of the company, what the company's already accomplished, what they're going to do with the proceeds from the SPAC. We're going to maybe touch upon some PIPE investors, and we're also going to talk about some strategic partners who've been included with this company along the way. So, Horace, if you'd like to start us off, please tell us a little bit about your story.
Thank you so much. We started Gogoro about 10 years ago with a single idea to make cities cleaner, smarter, healthier, and safer for the future generation. What most people don't realize in the West is that there are more urban commute miles written globally every day than any other mode of transportation. There are about 500 million two-wheelers on the road in China, India, and Taiwan alone. People in the East consider two-wheelers as an essential part of everyday lives, using them to go shopping, go to work, take their kids to school, commute every day on this mode of transportation. At the heart of what Gogoro does today is our Gogoro ecosystem that uses the battery swapping infrastructure and the battery swapping user experience to overcome the challenges of the electric vehicle, adoption in the East today. We started about 10 years ago in Taiwan, and over the last couple of years, we piloted the idea in Taiwan, and now we have accumulated a lot of technology and a lot of know-how. Taiwan has been a great market for us to pilot. Before we started in Taiwan, the electric two-wheeler penetration is less than 1%. It was sold really as a low-power, low-performance vehicle for a lot of, think of it as government and companies to do document deliveries. So very low rate adoption. Today, we are now the dominant player in electric two-wheeler and battery swapping in Taiwan, growing the market share from 1% to now the overall market to 10%. So think of it in comparison to Tesla. All the great things that people hear about Tesla today, Tesla is really only about 3.5% of the US automotive market today. We're about 10%. And what's even amazing is that within urban centers, we're at times over 20% market share. So last month, we just closed out one of our best month in the last 18 months. In Taipei, our core of our deployment today, with 24% market share. In urban centers today, not only are we at 10 to 20% market share, but within that 10 to 20% market share, we're now 95% of the electric vehicle. So out of, to put it simply, out of 100 vehicles that's sold, about 10 to 20 is electric, and out of the 10 to 20, about 95% of those are Gogoro and Gogoro Partners vehicle. And when I say Gogoro Partners, our open platform of battery swapping not only allow Gogoro branded vehicles to swap, but also allows our partners like in Taiwan, like Yamaha, Suzuki, A Motor, PGO, eMoving, a number of brands to build vehicles using our battery swapping network. Think of us really as the Android of EV, or Android of electric two-wheelers. We have really created the technology and an open platform that allowed us to demonstrate not only in Taiwan our success, but also helped us gather up a lot of partnerships around the world. I think G just mentioned that we just announced our deals in China with Yadi, the world's largest electric two-wheel maker. And Dachangjiang Haojue is also China's largest gasoline two-wheel maker. Together, they will use our Gogoro technology and our Gogoro battery swapping to deploy in China. We just deployed in Hangzhou with about 45 stations, and we're getting ready for mass production with Yadi as we speak. The initial feedback has been very positive. People love that user experience of swap and go. Instead of tether charging that takes hours to do, you swap a battery in just seconds, and making the ownership of ownership experience of owning a electric two-wheeler better than that of owning a gasoline two-wheeler by far. We also announced a deal with Hero in India, the world's largest gasoline two-wheel maker, with a coverage of 40 different countries altogether. And then just a couple of days ago, we announced our deal with Gojek, the logistics and ride-sharing partner, or the company of GoTo, Indonesia's largest technology company. And with them, we're announcing that we're going into the world's third largest two-wheeler market, Indonesia, and piloting our program with also the local gasoline stations, the largest gasoline station company. Together with China, India, and Indonesia, we have really just number one, number two, and number three of the largest two-wheeler market coverage with some of the largest partners. So, that's a quick introduction of what Gogoro does. We were just so very excited to be here talking to everyone about this opportunity as we, transform cities of the future to be more electrified, to be better.
Yeah, so a lot of the people in North America are just learning about the two-wheeled EV culture of Asia. And could you talk us through some of the the user interface? Explain basically how this has changed. We talked about some people using smart devices, phones and tablets. Can you just kind of talk our viewers through? You have one of these two-wheeled EV vehicles, and you want to switch and become part of the Gogoro network. Why don't you tell us how that works?
Yeah. Fundamentally, technology has, as you said, smartphones, smart devices, tablet, has really changed human productivity over the last couple of decades. It changed the way we work. It changed the way we educate ourselves and our children. It educates, on the way that it changed the way that we communicate with each other. Technology has gotten to a point where I believe that over the next several decades, it's going to converge with sustainability. Of course, with, the most recent COP26 discussions going on, and the G20 discussion just went on just a couple of weeks ago. The world is now seeing a necessity for technology to really impact the planet for the better. It is with this challenge that the opportunity of creating electric mobility possible. Instead of, the biggest challenge of our times today, I think, is, you want to change, but you can't change because of the lack of infrastructure, because of the living condition, the city situation that you're in. With Gogoro, we can overcome all the challenges of electric vehicle adoption with a simple idea and a simple business change of swap and go with battery swapping. So instead of buying a vehicle with buying a battery, you buy a vehicle without battery. Battery's not included. But instead, you would actually pay a subscription fee to Gogoro that allows you to swap batteries at any one of today, for example, in Taiwan, we have about 10,000 battery cabinets, or batteries, go stations, we call them, just over my shoulder here. These stations are placed across 2,000 different locations all through Taiwan at a density even higher than that of gas station. So when you're running low on energy, you stop by one of them, you pop in your battery, you deplete the battery. Our station then calculate, our cloud server and AI server just calculates, how much energy you've used, when you probably will swap battery next, and then also, which battery is best for your needs, and then pop up a battery that you would need to go for the additional another 100 kilometer. You jump from station to station just like you would with gas station with absolutely no range anxiety, no wait time on charge because we do it in seconds instead of minutes or hours. And to be honest with you, no worry about owning a battery because of the battery is one of the most expensive part of the build of material of the vehicle. In this particular case, you don't worry about it. You just swap a battery. If the battery is aging, swap for another one. If something goes wrong with your battery, just put it in the station and a new one will pop up for you. We take all the worries and all the bad parts about owning an electric vehicle and put it all toward the user experience, enhanced user experience with Swap and Go. One of the most unique thing about us is that we time shift energy. Think of it as time shifting energy. You put a battery in, we don't charge a battery right away, or we don't charge the battery or the grid wants us to charge. Instead, we would look at the demand need of the network. So a customer comes in, for example, G, if you come in with you pop in your battery, I would kind of be able to guess when and where you're going to need it next, and only charge and prepare a battery ready for that. And so, with that, we're able to then, play a very, very, I would say, a contributing role, a very, very supportive role of the electric grid. We only take energy when energy is absolutely needed, or when energy is in surplus and there's a lot of it. So being able to be a good player within the city is really important for us as well.
So are you able to take advantage of high demand during peak and off-peak hours as well? Maybe charge some of the batteries when there's not so much demand put onto the grid?
Absolutely. We take energy only when two things happen. When the demand of our network is available, or when the demand on the network, on our own network, is high and is needed, and also when the supply of the energy is of course it's optimal for us to take, because only then is our cost really low and our customer is really satisfied. So we look at that as a seesaw, where we are be able to balance that, be able to charge a battery only when we need to, and only as much as we need to satisfy the demand of the customer that we have, that we're serving today. In Taiwan, our Gogoro battery swapping network is supporting a little bit more than 400,000 customers today. We do on average hundreds of thousands of battery swaps a day. For us, having that data set, having the machine learning engine in the back, and having the real world customers using our network every day, really helped us refine our technology as we get ready for these, gigantic markets. Like I said, China, India, Indonesia, they're number one, number two, and number three two-wheeler markets in the world, with millions of vehicles, with 500 million vehicles on the road today in those markets. In China alone, about 270 million vehicles needs to be replaced over the next 3 to 5 years because of a new regulation that's just been enacted in 2019 by the Chinese government, that basically pushing everybody toward battery swapping as a mean to solve the problem for safety, for convenience, for cost, et cetera, et cetera.
When a person has a subscription to the Gogoro network, is that a pay one price, whether they use it minimally or if they are an excessive user?
Yeah, we have a variety of plans. We range from everything from all you can ride down to pay as you go. The general thesis is the more you ride, the more you pay, but the less you pay per kilometer. And the reverse happens. The less you ride, the more expensive you pay per kilometer, but overall bill, of course, is less. In general, we try to be about the same as gasoline in comp. So if you think about you using a gasoline vehicle today, if you include gas and you include maintenance and all the other things that goes along with owning a gasoline vehicle, translate that to per kilometer ridden, we're about similar on average. You get a little better if you ride very, very high kilometers, and you can sign up for all you can ride plans, and your per kilometer cost is way, way, way down there. But the reverse happens if you just use it, you kind of sporadically, very, very lightly every day. You might pay a little bit more than gasoline, but in average, about the same.
One of the retail investors I was speaking to the other day asked me a question I didn't know the answer to it. So when you put in these battery closets and you put in these network, do you have to make a deal with the landlord? Is that something you deal directly with the city or the government or the country? Could you just kind of walk us through that quickly?
Yeah, we do. We do with a variety of partners, ranging from coffee shop, convenience stores, supermarkets, schools, universities, municipality for bus stops and subway stations. So it's a variety of different locations. But the general thesis is where people kind of converge is where we want to be. And so by doing that, we're last mile problem, making it convenient for customers to get off a subway, get on their bike and get on home. The last mile, the last mile challenge of cities that are as large as Taipei or Hangzhou and other cities are gigantic because we want to try to be there at the convenient location. So, like I said, we do work with convenience stores, supermarket, universities, but in general, we see a high demand for our stations to be placed at that location because it's just the convenience and the presence of the station means that people are going to come up to it. So a good example of that is, we're working with Taiwan's largest supermarket, PX Mart. We started with 4 locations just as a test site a couple of years ago. Very quickly, they found out that, once people swap a battery, they go in and buy things. And, once you buy things, you buy quite a bit because, you got now a motorized vehicle that you can actually take things home. And instantly, we're asked to place those stations into every one of their supermarkets. That just helps us. It really helps, kind of bring people to location, to electrification. And that's kind of where we converge.
One of the things that I tell people is my own thesis on investing and things that actually make me buy are the simple things. It's the 3 Ps. It's people, products, and process. And you've talked through the product and the process with us a bit on the company. I do know that some other investors are going to be interested to hear what Bruce Aitken says. And one of the things I want you both to do a little bit, and I know it's not your style, is tell some of the people about things you've done in the past. You all have very impressive resumes, and some of the specs that retail investors have seen, maybe startups or entrepreneurs or people who, are kind of early on in their career, they just hit something really cool right off the bat. If you could just tell us some of the things in your life that got you to this place, I think that a lot of people watching this or listening to this would be really interested.
I think I've been very lucky, to be honest with you. I've been very lucky to be at the cusp of, change. I started my career at Nike, building some of the, kind of what I would say kind of breakthrough brands, the Tiger Woods, X Game, running, women's sport, number of different branding exercises. And one day my friend told me about the internet and how the internet was going to change everything. I packed up and went to Microsoft, started in Microsoft in the mid 90s, was, one of the founders of Xbox, eventually helped, Windows transition from being really a tools and just a PC into more of a lifestyle platform with Windows XP. And then eventually believed in mobility and computing so much, I left Microsoft after 10 years to join HTC and build some of the world's first Android phones. I really saw how technology changed all our lives. And, as I, crossed 40 years old 10 years ago, I had the choice to make as to what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I really believed in how technology can transform the planet and the way that we live in cities and grow the planet in a very sustainable way. When we started Gogoro, we knew how big the challenge was going to be, but we also knew that we're way ahead of the times. And we're able to build a lot of things vertically. Everything you see today with Gogoro, ranging from the battery that the vehicle, that goes into the vehicle, other than battery cell that we get from Panasonic, SDI, and LG, we built everything else. We built the entire battery pack. We have a fully automated, robotic factory that manufactures battery in a very, a very controlled environment that we developed vertically ourselves. Even the factory we developed ourselves. To the swap station you see behind my shoulder here, that really is everything in it. The inverters, the battery slots, the computer, the entire cabin itself, all the way to the connected cloud services that the AI machine learning servers that we have in the back end that does all the control system for our network, to the motor that goes into our vehicle, to the design of our vehicle. We manufacture our vehicle. We manufacture all the electronics in our vehicle, all to bring up the entire system in this integrated user experience, a very controlled user experience that we then can demonstrate to the entire industry how we can actually change the game by doing battery swapping. Now, that said, we just announced a strategic manufacturing partnership with Foxconn. Foxconn is going to back us up going into China, going into Southeast Asia, going into India. We're going to really, as a company, focus on the really high value, and very, I would say, very, things that are meaningful to us, very high IP value part of the business, while leaving, to Foxconn what they're great at, to do what they're great at, which is manufacturing and mass scaling. So in that partnership, I think we're gonna find ourselves to be able to scale very quickly into these large markets.
Well, thanks, Horace. If you don't mind, I'd like to bring Bruce in for a second. And I know that when the time comes and they have you on financial television, one of the questions they're going to ask is, why a Spac? Why a company like yours that's, not projected for 2025 first-time revenue, didn't go a traditional IPO route? And for you and for your company, why it was appealing to get with Homer and get with the folks at Poema Global to go this way, opposed to going the traditional IPO?
Thanks, Chief. Thanks for having us. It's a good question. We've been asked many times before as to why we would choose this SPAC route. And there's a couple of different reasons. One reason, and you kind of pointed to it, is we're not a pre-revenue, pre-technology, brand new company. We have a proven track record. We'll do $327 million in revenue this year, expect to grow that to about $500 million next year. We've got 400,000 riders on the streets of Taiwan, almost 900,000 batteries deployed. So we've got a real strong track record. And we did contemplate multiple different options for a listing. The first decision we made was to go to the NASDAQ. We thought that was, and still think it's, the best platform for technology companies like ourselves. We wanted to step onto the global stage, grow the company. We wanted to be able to access capital markets in the future if we need further financing. We don't anticipate that in the short term, but we want to have the ability to do so. But most importantly, this was about stepping up, improving our governance, demonstrating our capability, being able to go shoulder to shoulder or toe to toe with the big, large, publicly traded companies that we're doing deals with, that we're working with very closely, whether it's Hero in India, Yadi in China, or GoTo, who's working on their own public offerings at some point in the near future, likely. So those are the kinds of companies that we want to be compared with. Those are the kinds of, that's the kind of stage that we want to put ourselves on. And in terms of the SPAC route, we met a number of different SPACs. Homer and team stood out for a number of different reasons. Number one, we had a lot of chemistry. They, at Princeville, which is the fund that Poema is associated with, they have a big focus on sustainability, and clearly our business is a sustainability-focused business as well. Homer and team have a lot of experience in taking companies that are not U.S.-based onto U.S. markets, and so we think there's a lot we can learn, have already learned from working with them. And just frankly, personally, we got along. We hit it off. We've done this whole deal over Zoom. We were joking about it before we started recording. We've never actually met Homer in person, but we have a feeling that when we do it, it'll be like we're old friends. So the chemistry has been an important part of this story for us as well. And so, we're really excited. We think we've got a great future. Our product speaks for itself. Our technology speaks for itself. Our financial history and performance speaks for itself, and we're ready to launch and ready to go do some big things.
So when we look back at the initial SPAC, and we're going to get you on in a second, Homer, there's roughly, just call it for ballpark reasons, about $350 million raised from the SPAC. A lot of retail investors are curious, rightfully so, of who and when, if there's going to be a PIPE and who it is. And some of these PIPE investors have been deemed short money, some of them have been deemed long money, some are smart money, some are strategic partners. If you could just touch on that just a bit, and we'll leave Homer. I'm going to leave some for you as well. So, but Bruce, we'll get you on this one right now.
Okay, good. So you're right, G. $345 million held in trust in the Poema SPAC right now. We initially set out to raise $175 million in a PIPE. That was kind of our marketed number. We closed the PIPE at $257 million, so we were substantially oversubscribed. And we thought about the PIPE very intentionally in three kind of different buckets of money. The first bucket was we wanted to make sure that existing investors in Gogoro who had been with us throughout this journey, which, as Horace mentioned, has been 10 years long from founding until now. We wanted to make sure that those people had the opportunity to continue to invest, continue to back us, continue to believe in the story. And so we're super pleased that folks like Temasek, folks like Generation Investment Management, which is Al Gore and team's sustainability-focused fund that has offices in San Francisco and in London. Our large founding investor, Dr. Samuel Yin, in Taiwan, and a number of other early stage investors all chose to continue to participate. So we were pleased about that. The second bucket of cash, which was really probably the most important in terms of our path forward, is the strategic bucket. And so Foxconn, who we've talked about a little bit, became an investor in Gogoro through this PIPE process. Multiple vehicle manufacturers that we work with, kind of leading vehicle manufacturers in some of the countries that we'll grow into, became investors through this process. And then GoTo and Gojek, who we spoke about, became an investor, a strategic investor through this process. So, those kinds of names really bring credibility to the expansion story. They bring credibility to the technology and our ability to scale that technology story. And we're really pleased to have those folks who are all going to be, we think, long hold investors in Gogoro and really interested in long-term upside. The third bucket is new strategic cash, if you will, new strategic financial investors. And so we've got a mix of Asia regional investors who've joined us. We've got U.S. institutional investors who've joined us. And we've really tried to focus on primarily long only. We've really tried to intentionally look at the existing holders in the SPAC, and Homer can talk to that a little bit if you're interested, and really tried to balance across new strategic, existing investors, and new institutional investors. Again, all with the focus on making sure that we're well established, well funded, and really ready for the next stage of growth.
So thank you for that and helping us understand some of the process for the company going from a private company to a public company is a pretty important step. And now is the time where I'm going to embarrass you and ask you to brag about yourself a little bit in a humble way, as you naturally would. Tell us about your past. What did you do in your life to get you to where you are now?
Like Horace said, I feel super fortunate. I've been able to do some interesting and unique things. I grew up in Taiwan. My parents lived here when I was a kid. So I was exposed to Asia early on in life. I went to university and grad school in the US, and then I joined Intel. And I was fortunate to spend 20 years at Intel. I lived in Malaysia, in the Philippines, and spent over 15 years with Intel in China. I did just about every job in the finance arena that you can imagine. I was in factory finance, sales and marketing finance, business unit, kind of divisional finance. Ended basically as the CFO for Intel's China operations, which was a, $14 billion in revenue, kind of big scale, lots of big customers. Lenovo, the number one PC manufacturer in the world, under management, all of those kinds of things. I then left and I wanted to do something different. So I was fortunate to be offered a job to join Amazon and to run the device business and the books content business and the books hardline business for Amazon in China. I got to be a general manager. I got to, kind of own the P&L on the business side versus the finance side, and really learned a ton there. The way I think about it is Intel changed the world through the semiconductor and making semiconductors through Moore's Law more broadly available to consumers. Amazon changed the world through efficiency and through innovation. And then about 3.5 years ago, Horace and I were on the phone one day, through a mutual connection. We really hit it off, and he said, "Hey, you kind of fit the bill for what I'm looking for in a CFO. Why don't you come over and visit?" And that was it, right? So 3.5 years ago, I joined Gogoro, and now I get to work at a company that's going to totally change the world through sustainability, clean mobility, improve urban lifestyles for the people who live in these densely populated cities. And I couldn't be more excited about the future.
Yeah, well, again, I'm trying to help people understand who may not be familiar with the Gogoro name. Again, a lot of North Americans and Europeans, a lot of retail investors are more Americentric typically in their investments, but there are a growing amount of people daily who know that there's significant growth in these other different markets, some whether they're emerging markets or some if they're just massive markets. And we talk about TAM, and somewhere when this is posted, I'd like to also have a link for the investor presentation, so some of the investors can go through that and see some of the interesting things, and sometimes those pictograms and things on the investor package really hit home. So thank you, Bruce. We've covered products, we've covered some process, we've covered some people, and now we're going to bring in Homer, if you don't mind. And Homer, as a Spac sponsor, we know that there's a bunch of you folks out there, and finding the right target is what separates the good sponsors from the not so good sponsors. And some of the things that stand out to me as somebody who looks at many, many SPACs is right off the bat, I see that you have underwriters at Citigroup and UBS. I have never spoke with Homer before we met on this. But Homer, why don't you take us through the SPAC process, kind of like the dating process, how you and Horace hit it off. And I do believe that a good SPAC sponsor and a good SPAC merger is a partnership. It's not just a banker, doing his deal and taking his promote and just doing the next one. So if you don't mind, Homer, can you touch upon some of these things?
Yeah, thank you, G. Indeed, it is like a speed dating process somewhat to have a SPAC. We were frankly focusing on Asia and Europe, but quite surprised by the sheer number of opportunities that came to us right out of the bat when we raised our SPAC in January of this year. We looked very, very closely and had in-depth discussions with over 4 dozen potential target companies. And I think what we were really focused on for our first SPAC, and it is our ambition to build a multi-SPAC franchise, we wanted to really bring a marquee transaction. And I think, in Gogoro, we found an amazing business with scale and maturity, as both Horace and Bruce have talked about. This is a business that's accumulated over $1 billion of revenue since inception. It's EBITDA positive since 2019, far, far away from being a science project or sort of like one of these pre-revenue moonshot businesses that we've seen so much in the world of SPAC. We thought that was an important amount of differentiation that was going to be available to the market. And then, frankly, the management was very important. We spent well over 7 months getting to know Horace and Bruce and the team before we announced the deal. We found in the team an incredibly thoughtful group of technologists that are completely public company ready, with backgrounds, as we've touched upon in the case of Horace, at Microsoft, HTC, and then Bruce just talked about his background. The chairman of NASDAQ is on the board of this company. And so the management part of this was really, really important. And then finally, as you said, in the spirit of partnership, we wanted to find an opportunity where we also felt like we would be uniquely equipped to contextualize, especially to North American investors, this opportunity that today is a bit more Asia-centric, just given our footprint in Hong Kong and Berlin, given our experience in this part of the world. And we think we're going to be able to bring a really compelling opportunity. Now, to a North American investor, it's clear. If you look at India and Indonesia, for instance, over 80% of the vehicles on the road are two-wheelers. That number in the United States is 3%. And so we wanted to be sure that we could help contextualize to understand the size of this TAM, even if the two-wheeler opportunity isn't quite as apparent. And I think when we met investors on the road, everyone immediately understood the opportunity set. Once you look at the numbers, once you get a sense for some of the detail in our presentation, as you mentioned. And then it was really about connecting the dots to clear comparable business models, especially here in the United States, in North America, that investors can then use to span geography. And I think in the case of Gogoro, how you can think about this as an investor is this is charge point or stem for two-wheelers, okay? Very, very similar business models with an upfront hardware component, a reoccurring revenue component to it. The big difference being that ChargePoint and STEM today are trading at over 8 times 2023 revenue. We are bringing this opportunity at 2.5 times 2023 revenue. And so we wanted to also finally to make sure that we had a very compelling opportunity that could create very interesting price discovery, very interesting momentum into the first year of trading as a public company for Gogoro and in the many, many years to come. And so all of that went into bringing this transaction together. We couldn't be more delighted to be working with our friends and partners, Horace, Bruce, and the team at Gogoro.
You know, allowing for price discovery is such a refreshing thing to hear from a SPAC sponsor, because typically what we've seen in some of these deals in the past is we saw companies that people liked and people were excited to see them go SPAC. And then when they heard the valuation, then they kind of gave the, oh. So, yeah, people are excited for a name or an industry or something that they follow and they think that they might be interested in. But sometimes the needle across the record is the valuation and the frothiness of it. But I think that we're in a very different situation here because this was a company that was ready for being public. This was a possible candidate for an IPO. You have very seasoned veterans from some of the largest multinational companies in the world. So these are some of the things that had captured my attention as an investor. And I ignorantly called it a scooter, as I think most Americans would, only because we don't know. And I apologize to everybody when I said that, when I realized that I was inaccurate in the description. So it is a two-wheel EV. Is that the terminology?
Well, I think it's important to really not confuse Gogoro as a scooter company. Fundamentally, what Gogoro is it's a technology platform. As Horace said, it's like Android. It's like Intel. It's the technology enabler that allows the hardware manufacturers to do what they do best, which is sell great products to customer demographics they understand exceptionally well. In this case, Yamaha, Suzuki, Hero MotoCorp, Yadi in China, et cetera. And so I think Gogoro started out and has a lot of revenue from hardware because it needs to have that enabling hardware to build out the recurring revenue. But it's really the recurring revenue, this subscription revenue that's super sticky, this swap and go revenue, that's really at the core of the technology differentiations, at the core of the high value that Gogoro is able to provide to its customers. And increasingly, Gogoro is going to be leaving the front-end manufacturing of hardware to the Foxcons of the world, as Horace said, so the team can really focus on what it does best, which is really developing and continue to build moats around this incredible technology that has a lot of long-term visibility. And just from a sponsor standpoint, as an indication of our total confidence in this business, what we have done is actually taken our sponsor promote and really aligned it for the long term. So we have structured a deal whereby we're only getting 25% of our promote at closing. The remaining 75% isn't available to us until the stock hits $15 to $20. So in other words, the stock needs to be up 50 to 100% fully 100% before we are fully in the money for our promote. And we're very comfortable with that. We're very comfortable with that alignment because we can really see the growth trajectory, the long-term growth trajectory of this business based on the well over 7-8 months of diligence that we've done on this business onshore in China, talking to all of these key partners to see where Gogoro is going next.
So the last thing I'd like to ask you, and then we can let Horace and Bruce have some last thoughts, is sometimes we've seen with SPACs, especially that are not domestic, we've seen a little bit of a tie-up with closing and the actual merger happening. I know we've seen it in some fintechs. Why don't you just talk us through when you think that the closing may be, and just give us some dates that you may be working around for possible proxies and that type of thing.
Yeah, so my sense is that the proxy should be in the marketplace in the coming week or two, and then thereafter that should put us on track to be in mode for closing, sometimes for the latter part of the first quarter. And then we have a $400 million minimum cash condition for this transaction. We already have a $260 million pipe. And so we also feel very comfortable with the buffer that we have with our $345 million SPAC to get to a very successful closing and really see a long-term growing and interesting equity story for North American investors in Asia.
Perfect. Thank you, Homer. Well said. Let's go back to Horace. Horace Luke, any last thoughts? Anything you want to add that we should close out with before we get with Bruce?
Yeah, like Homer said, there is, for us at Gogoro, the unique thing is it's our subscriber base and how sticky our platform really is. Yes, you'll see revenues coming inbound from, everything from vehicle sales to our component kits and technology sales, as well as our battery and Go Station sales to overseas partners. That's one lump sum of revenue that's coming in. But perhaps what's most unique is our swap and go revenue. That is super sticky, that is reoccurring, and most important, it's actually accumulating over time. So the cohort that we have built up since 2015, I can't say not one single person, but very, very small amount of person has fallen off. It continued to stack up with a very, very constant base. The first guy that actually bought a vehicle continued to pay, on our network in order to move the vehicle around. Think of it as, if you don't pay, you don't move. And that vehicle, because the person owns that vehicle and pays that subscription constantly becomes a revenue stream for us. And then over time, let's say if I sell 1,000 vehicles this year, 2,000 the next year, 3,000 the year following, I really have a captive audience of 6,000 subscribers at the end of 3 years. That accumulated subscriber base and the accumulated output that comes inbound from that is on average about 1-to-1 to our hardware sales. So think of our hardware sales as really a leading indicator of what's to come. And that's the first thing I really, just kind of break down the revenue a little bit there. The second thing that's perhaps most unique is the way that we're entering into these foreign markets being partner-led instead of us taking, the full amount of risk going into these markets. We're really empowering our partner to kind of pull us into the market. In the case with Yadi and Dachangjiang, they have over 50,000 retail outlets in China today. Given that their motivation to do battery swapping as a main mean of this transformation they're about to go through in the next decade, we see our scaling into those countries and into those large regions in a very partnership kind of way. So I think that's the second note I want to really leave everybody. And the third is really, this is the decade for electric mobility. In 2022, as we have announced over the last couple of weeks, by us going into these markets, it will be the availability, that will make this happen in 2022 to the masses. So really, we worked 10 years at this point. To us getting to list publicly on the NASDAQ, getting the resources, pulling together, the I would say that the even more capabilities for us to actually now, tackle and commercialize into these markets. We're just at the starting line, and for us, we see this opportunity as a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Thank you, Horace, and that was really good way to wrap it up for a lot of the retail people. I think you've answered a lot of the questions. And Bruce, not too many people will finish with the finance guy, but I'm a big fan of the CFO. Come on, buddy, bring it home.
Just two things come to mind, G. The first is what we describe in our investor deck is the piece of the business that we've already delivered, which is kind of really vehicle-centric and energy platform-centric. But think of Gogoro as much more than that. Whether it's monetization of data through financing opportunities, through usage-based insurance, through location-based services, whether it's carbon offsets that we can create markets for in the future, whether it's second life opportunities for batteries that are not even included in our projections. There's so much more that we can do once we get to scale. So our focus for the next little while is scale. That's China, India, that's Indonesia. And as we build those countries out, look for us to do more and more. And then the second point that I would make is, we'll connect a link, and please go download and review our deck. We think we've taken, in light of who our partners are and how big these markets are, we think we've taken fair and accurate estimates about market growth and market size. And to Homer's point, I think we've priced this deal really fairly, and we've got a deal that's got partner alignment between the Spac in Poema and ourselves, and it's got alignment with many of our growth partners because they're investors in the pipe as well. So we think just holistically, this is a great transaction. Would encourage everybody to go take a look.
Thank you, Horace Luke. Thank you, Homer Sun. Thank you, Bruce Aiken. Thank you, Gogoro. And I'm really excited about this one, and I really don't say that often. So thank you, guys. Very impressive.
Awesome. Thank you, G.